Hello, I'm Oytunkal, an authorized Unreal Engine instructor. Today I will go through the newest tools in Unreal Engine 5.7 for the animators. I will be using the projects that were recently released by the Agora Studios for all the Unreal Engine users. These projects can be found under Fab and you can already download them and start customizing these projects in order to create your own creations. Thanks for watching. Have a nice lesson. In this tutorial, I will go through these animation tools in Unreal Engine 5.7. Our main focus, key focus will be the engine first customization because thanks to the recent tools, now we will have lesser need for the external DCCs, digital content creation tools. Let's take a quick look at what this project is all about. As you can see, it's a very powerful project, and thanks to this project, now we can create a lot of beautiful works. Let me show you. Here on the left side, you see the animatic render, and on the right side, you see the cinematic render. The animatic render is created with the support of the Odyssey free plugin, and as you can see, they are using the same 3D environments. And within the same 3D environments, the same lighting is also valid. So many of the visual effects, camera angles, camera movements, compositions, the scenes that are already prepared all within Unreal Engine, thanks to this plugin. And right after that, the animators can easily start animating the CGI characters. But this previous work, this animatic, provides a very good opportunity for all the animators out there, and as you can see, it is basically professional output. And here are the learning outcomes for this tutorial video. By the end of this lecture, you should be able to structure a complex cinematic using the sequencer nesting tools, integrate 2D drawing in 3D space for in-context previews using Odyssey. You will be able to use the new tools like the motion trace and the tween tools to refine keyframe timing and spacing. You will be able to leverage Sculpt Morph to create deformation blend shapes directly in Unreal Engine. You will be able to set up dynamic secondary motion using control rig physics and apply production best practices like reverse baking for data reusability. Let's start. We'll start with the segment 1, project foundation and the setup. The foundation for engine first workflow has these following key steps. First, we will open the ACOM animation sample project and then establish main edit and shot sequence hierarchy. We will analyze the existing hierarchies, and I will also share some tips and tricks about how to create your own. We will enable the skeletal mesh morph target editing tools under plugins. We will enable the physics control plugin. Let's continue with the sequencer. In the sequencer, you can edit both the visuals and the audio. The key steps are: we will use the sequencer navigation tool for high-level structure. For both projects, you can use it easily. We will perform real-time audio scrubbing for dialogue sync. We will be able to use mute and solo track options for local changes if you would like to only see a certain track that is active. And we will be able to use experimental scale relativity feature for timing adjustments. Let's do it. If you open your Epic Games Launcher, you have also this Fab segment. Under Fab tab, you can have access to all Fab content. And all you need to do is just search for certain keywords. For these projects, you can write ACOM. And then you can see the ACOM animation sample and the ACOM animatic sample by Agora Studios. As you can see, the animation sample is 4.15 gigabytes and the animatic sample is 1.70. Let's first click on the animation sample project. It is already on my disk, and if you like to create a new project from that same content, you can click on Create Project, or you can remove the files from here. Here you can also find some description, some documentation links, and also related projects. Under Unreal Engine, if you have already created your projects with these content, you can go and find that project and open it by double-clicking on it. When you first open the project, you will find yourself in the welcome level. If you are looking for the welcome level, it is under content, under animation sample. There you have the welcome level. It will be opened automatically and it will salute you with a easier to open levels, because in the animation that you have seen earlier, the project is much heavier in terms of performance. So therefore, if you like to basically get to know the characters and play around with their control rigs and maybe investigate their components, etc., the welcome level might be the easier intro point. If you like to also open the sequencer for the welcome level, you can go to episodes. Under welcome idols, you can find the level sequence, and once you open that, you can see now that if you press play, if your viewport is under cinematic viewport, you can press play and you can basically investigate all those idle animations in loop. These are our main characters. Beta is the name of these big guy, and the others are alpha, gamma, delta. So as you can see, they are already very high quality characters and you can start playing around with them. Even in the welcome level, you can see certain features of sequencing. Under alpha, which is this female character, you see that there is this control rig. And if you click on control rig and then wait a few seconds, you will see that all the control rigs will be activated in your viewport. So the viewport that is on the right has the cinematic viewport. That's why it is not showing us the control rig. But the one on the left is just a default viewport. Okay, so that's why I can see the control rigs here. I can easily suggest you to have this type of a layout to work with these sequencer type of editing tools, because that way you can always adjust certain elements in terms of distance and also composition while checking your camera content always from the second viewport. Here in this example, you can also see the camera and you can even play around with this. The camera object can also be manipulated easily. As you can see, if you click on any of these elements inside of a character, you can basically start animating them thanks to their control rig physics. But I will show you some easier tools to play around with the characters. In addition to that, you have also the open level widget. So this is a cinematic level, which we have seen earlier, but I would not suggest you to open it with the Epic graphics. Instead, you might start with low, and if your system is capable of playing it in real time or quasi real time, because this animation is not made for real time viewing, it is a rendered output, so it's not a game ready, production ready for real time content. Therefore, I suggest you to start with the low and then open the cinematic level. You can either click on it from here, open cinematic level, or you can go to the content browser and find the level from there. Since it is opening now, I have to wait a few seconds because it takes a while. Now the level is open. I don't need this gadget screen anymore, so I can close it. So I have opened it with low settings, but if you would like to make it easier for your system to show it to you what is being rendered here, You can even go and select unlit, both of them if you like to. That way you can go and investigate what's going to be happening here. If you would press play here, you will not be able to see what's happening in real time, because in order to see the contents in the sequencer, you have to have your shots, your camera track to be active. So you can go back to the front, press play. Let me stop there. So as you can see, even with the low settings and the unlit function, the system is not capable of running this content in real time. But while roaming around, I can easily go closer to the characters and see them from different angles, in addition to what's already happening in this scene. The real-time audio scrubbing might not be that easy for this type of a scene. Therefore, I strongly suggest you to let it run once, and then it can maybe create a buffer. Content can be saved into the cache library, etc. For shaders, we are trying our best to not have any difficulties for this type of content. What are the tracks that we have here? We have one shots, another shots track. So as you can see, no two shots are right next to each other, because this type of editing gives you a creative freedom. If you like to make one of them any longer, you don't have to think about whether you have to make also this one shorter or not. So this allows you to have some more freedom in terms of editing. So I can strongly suggest these type of shot tracks. Additionally, you have the audio music channel and the audio SFX. If you go here and click on these, you will not have any audio. If you press play, so everything works without any audio. If you remember the animation, so the character is making its animations here and he is in the air. So here we are on top. You can also close or open these type of tracks too. So let's click on this one and see what's inside. Here we have again the camera cuts. It is using the camera from within this content. We have another track that contains 20 other tracks, as you can see. And these tracks are certain blueprints and even some animated characters, and also one media. Let's see what this media is. The media is this beta title screen, for example. So you can always go back and investigate further. We have those 20 tracks. We have those audio track. We have control rigs, which is deactivated right now. We have baked animations, lighting, FX, media, cam rig, and the camera that is attached to that cam rig, and PPV beta, which is this post-process value. Before going any further, right after we have started to investigate this project a little bit, before going any further, I would like to continue with what we have just mentioned. So we have analyzed, or at least started to take a look to the hierarchy of these shots in this very complicated animation sequence. If you click on one of them, you can see the set anim, the control rigs, and even the baked animations, as you can see here. Or you can go one step up and you can even go to the control rigs here. So the control rig is not only from beta, but also from certain other objects. So sometimes these type of going back and forth can be difficult, but we will show you some easier navigation tools like the sequencer nav tool. Let's find that tool. As you can see, going back and forth can also be a little bit cumbersome and difficult to follow what to see what was inside what. So now you have these sequence navigator tool inside Unreal Engine. If you take a look at your sequencer, you will see three similar icons that might confuse you. These are these clappers. Here is one. The first one looks like a proper clapper. It is for rendering. If you click on it, it basically asks you what you would like to render out. And then I continue. There is another one. This is with an arrow on top of it, which allows us to select certain objects and to not select excluded objects. Like if I click on it again, I can still continue to select those boxes that are in the scene. But if I click on it, since those objects are not in the scene, I cannot select them. But if I click on the character or the door part, then I can select them. But those boxes are irrelevant and they are not active in our sequencer, so I cannot click on them. Well, this is the second clapper. Here is the third clapper. If you take a closer look to it, you will see that it looks like a hierarchy. So it is basically toggles the visibility of the sequence navigator. If you click on it, you will open the sequence navigator and all the sequences and subsequences will be listed here chronologically. If you click on one of them, you will see what's inside of it. And all the subsequences are also listed underneath it. So you will see what kind of actors, like whether there are skeletal meshes or whether there are light equipments or Niagara particle effects or skeletal meshes or static meshes or blueprints or materials, whatever. So whatever it is here will be listed with its icons. So it's a very good way of manipulating and making those changes. Okay, Sequence Navigator is a very good tool. So if your computer is good enough to render it out, you can scrub your sequencer to hear real-time audio. But if you have certain elements that are not really required, you can easily deactivate them. Like for example, here the audio part was deactivated, so you didn't hear anything. As you can see, all those movements can be heard. So I deactivate them again. In this part, we are watching the baked animation. And if you would also deactivate that one, you will see that the baked animation is gone. All right. So baked animations are back. So here, the animators of this project have created all of those animations, mostly the character animations, also in control rigs. And those control rigs are mostly the same animating characters. Like for example, let's find our beta character. If I click on beta control rig, I should be able to edit its content. But since it is deactivated from here, it is probably not visible. So let's deactivate the baked animations and go back to control rigs and then select the control rig again. Now you can see easily that the control rigs of the character are visible and I can start animating the character by using the required parts, control rig elements. Previously, we also mentioned the need for activating certain plugins. If you like to go to plugins and search for them, in our case, say skeletal mesh, morph, target editing tools. Check if this one is activated. Not, please activate it. Of course, you also need to have skeletal mesh editing tools activated. Additionally, you are looking for physics control, controlling static and skeletal meshes through physical controls. And here you see control rig physics. It also gives you the opportunity for the support for physics simulation in control rig. You can also click on it. It will give you a warning saying that it's an experimental plugin. And then all you need to do is click on restart. And it will ask you basically whether you would like to save what the changes that you have made. It didn't really change anything, but I can easily say, all right, save selected. Now the engine will restart. Once all the plugins are activated and you have restarted your Unreal Engine, you can close the plugins window and go back to the level that you are working. If you see another level, once you open it, you can always go to Edit, Project Settings, and then under Maps and Modes, you can always select the required level, either the welcome level or the main level, Intro Beta Master level, to be opened right when you open this engine. Both game default map and editor startup map can be selected. That way, even if you need to restart something, you don't need to go always back to the welcome level or any other level that you have created. Segment 2. Custom in-context previsualization. Catching the pivot shot in 3D. For these sketches, you will need the Odyssey plugin. In some tutorials, you might see that these animation sample contains already the sketches. However, with the final release of these projects, they have been released separately as two different projects, namely the animatic project and the animation project. Therefore, you also need to download them separately from fab.com. For the animatic projects, we will need the Odyssey plugin, and we will be able to use 2D drawings in 3D space and to sketch our custom poses. We will be able to manage timing using the dedicated Odyssey sequencer and iterate on composition with real geometry. The other project file that we would like to investigate is the ACOM animatic sample. We have already watched this animatic, and here you can see the sequencer of the welcome level animatic. So you can basically go to content browser and click on intro beta and open the intro beta master level. Again, once you open that level, you can also make the same adjustments that we have done for this project. Let's go to the maps and modes, and instead of we will basically write master. Both of these will be the opening levels now. Additionally, I will also go here and make the same adjustments. Instead of the top frame, I will select perspective. And here, this time, instead of the cinematic viewport, we have something called Odyssey viewport. That way, we have a separate Odyssey animatic sequencer. Here, it's called the board sequence. Let's click on it. We'll basically click on this. If you see something like this, turn this one into a perspective and default viewport, and also deactivate the allow cinematic control. So that way you can also see the placement of those 2D drawing plates within the scene. So here on the right, we can go here and select Odyssey viewport. Of course, to be able to see these kind of tools, you will need to go to plugins again and activate the Odyssey plugin. You might want to also first download this plugin by going to Epic, then Fab. Under Fab, search for Odyssey. As you can see, here is the Odyssey plugin. You can basically click on it and install plugin first. And once you install it for free, then you need to go back to the engine and activate it from here. Once you do that, you can easily come back and investigate what has been going on here. So basically what we are seeing here is actually the same content that we have seen in the animation is happening in real time. Here you can see the plate and the camera moves backward and our character is braking and going backwards. And the animation continues here with the fight sequence. A pretty impressive tool. Right. As you can see, can also move from one animation cut to the other one. This gives us a special navigation system. And once you are inside of a board, you can also easily investigate what is in that board. In our case, we have all these elements listed on top of each other as drawings. So all these drawings can easily be investigated and edited. If you click on an item and then click Ctrl B, here in this case Ctrl B, you can basically go to that element and you can see it is located under Beta Intro Animatic, Beta Intro Private. That will allow you to open this kind of contents easily. So as you can see, this Odyssey plugin is basically a 2D drawing app that allows you to draw on it within Unreal Engine. So you could have easily use a drawing tablet and draw anything you want and then animate it. As you can see, we have 3 layers here. One of them is Beta, our main character. If I would turn off his layer, it would go away. You can also uses sliders to change the opacity levels. It's basically Photoshop-like graphical editor. You can basically use certain brushes, and let's just basically create another empty layer to make some sketch-like elements. All these elements can be easily manipulated, deleted, shapes, paint, and they are all saved into your plate. And once you do that, as you can see, this one is of course not saved. I don't really want to. I just delete it. I close it back and I come back to our sequencer. So all of these contents can easily be manipulated, edited within the sequencer. Of course, it would take some time to really get used to it, and it would accept from you to have certain drawing skills, but not necessarily you have to be best, because these are just basically guiding drawings. I mean, look at it. This guy doesn't look like Beta at all. I mean, it's just a basic drawing, mostly implying the figure, the form of the character, without necessarily reflecting the character in 101. Just the size, the scale, and so on. Once you do that, you can then bring in your CGI characters and put into the similar positions and animate it from within. So that's why this animatic sample project is also very important, and how you can easily animate this content too. Basically, you can easily manipulate the placement of the plates, the placement of the set actors, namely the whole 3D environment, even the lighting of the environment, even within the animatic sequence. So thanks to that, you can pre-visualize everything almost up to 90%. And then all you need to do is, of course, the control rig animation process with the characters inside Unreal Engine. So this allows the elimination of external DCCs easily. Let's continue. Now we continue with segment 3, movement refinement. The core tools for animation precision. We have several new tools in Unreal Engine. One of them is the motion trails. The motion trails create beautiful visualizing arcs, which are already very well used by all the animators that have been using all the other DCCs previously. Now we have them also in Unreal Engine. The tween tools. The new tween tools give us bigger interpolation control, and the curve editor that provides the recent tools lattice and the newest snapping tools. Let's continue with visualizing and editing arcs. In order to do that, we will first activate the motion trails via the new viewport icon. We will select a display style like the dashed, time, or heat map, and we will then adjust keys directly in the viewport for precise arc changes, the advanced interpolation and timing. There are certain new hotkeys, let's say shortcuts. These are U plus left mouse button, indirect manipulation, Shift plus U, toggle sliders for fine-tuning, Control plus U, toggle overshoot mode for snappy motion. Let's see them in action. Let's take a look at the motion trails. So we are in sequence 65. If you like to quickly navigate to here, you can again use a sequence navigator and find the sequence 65. Underneath it, under control rigs, we are looking for the control rig of Gamma, which is this animal character. So if you like to go and click on the control rig for this character and then press G if you cannot see the gizmos in the scene, you can basically activate control rig view. So you see that this character has already a beautifully set up control rig, also our beta character. Here in this scene, you would like to see the motion trails. The motion trails are very important in giving arc-like motions to our characters. In animation, it's one of the basic principles to use arc-like motions to have a more fluid, more realistic and also more dynamic appearance of the animated character, because we as organic beings, we also move in arcs. So here we are again. If I press G, I can turn off all these crowded areas, but what we would like to do is we would like to click to the body portion of the control rig of this character. For that, I will go to the anim outliner. If you go to the anim outliner and click on gamma, control rig, top stack, body, you will also see that the body part is here selected. So this animation outlier is very easy to handle these kind of crowded sequence orders. So it might be difficult to find this part, so you can easily go back to your anim outlier and click on body. All right, I especially selected this type of a scene because here you will see that this character comes into the image with arc-like jumps. This is also, and another jump from here, from ground, and then moves upwards out of the frame. Another thing that you could have used for this scene would be that barrel that the main character is throwing away. You see that those arc-like motions are always in place. So you could also consider this type of motion an arc, and you could also investigate its motion trail. Maybe that can be your task to learn more about the motion trails. But here in our case, I would like to go and press G to unselect everything. And here we are, we have our animal character moving in arcs. So let's see the motion trail. What do? As I said, we would like to select the body part. We can either do it from animation outlier or from here. Once you do that, all you need to do is go up. You should be also in the animation mode. If you are there, you basically go and first take a look at its appearance. I strongly suggest you to increase the thickness a little bit and maybe the key size and the mark sizes too. You can also enable show keys and show marks. That way it will have a better representation. If it is not, the thickness will be very, very small. So you need to close the menu and reopen it to get affected by the recent changes that you have made. Okay, it doesn't automatically change the values while you are working on it, so it needs a refresh. So it is not active yet. I only need to click on it once. If you move your slider from left to right, you can see the motion trail that is associated with this motion of our character. But in which mode are we seeing? It is now in trail style. Let's start with the default mode. Again, for it to refresh, you need to redo it again. The default mode looks like this, a purple line, and the keys are represented with yellowish, greenish colors. And if you change the mode from default to dashed, and again you need to redo it, you will see the spacing in between the keyframes. You see that the distances between certain keyframes are a little bit longer, and between different two keyframes the distances are also different. This also is very much related to the basic animation principles when it comes to animating characters, especially in fast motions. Another good thing would be the time option. You see that the time with purple means that it was right before this current instance, and the reddish orange line refers to what's going to happen, which path this animal is going to follow. As the animal runs along this route, you guys can see that it's turning into the purple one. All right, and last one that you have briefly seen is the heat map. If you click on it and re-scrub it, you will see that the colors are changing here mostly. This is the part where the character leaves the frame and goes upward. So the red parts are the most fastest animated areas. So you see, you don't see any detailed animation anymore. Those are just direct lines. So you don't see the arc-like motion anymore, because probably this is something that you wanted to do to bring your character character out of the frame. And as you can see here, the character's movement, motion is not visible in the frame anymore. Therefore, it's not detailed and realistic anymore. So the character just basically moves on this certain route. Okay, so you can start playing around with these motion trails. There are certain other options like the top stack body. You could select a space and select a character or an object or maybe a camera and then see the motion trail from its perspective. In this case, I have selected the sprite, and when you rescrub it, you will see the motion trail from the perspective of that sprite. But yes, it is generated. So once you click on it, it has a different positioning. So you can always turn it off. And once you rescrub it from your time cursor, your original motion trail will come back. It requires a few seconds. I think it will be back in a few seconds. Additionally, you can also come back to here, top stack body, and click offset. And that way you can also adjust some offset distance from the character. In order to do that, you can manually move this head. So that might be useful for the animators who are going to need certain distance from the character when moving it and still having a good grasp of what kind of arc-like motion they could have created. These motion trails are very useful and I hope you will use them in your projects. Let's take a look at the tween tools. I'm now in the final sequence 200. Some of you might remember that the beta character was throwing a punch into the camera as the final shot. The camera is right in front of him and he is throwing a punch. Now what we can do is go to the curve editor. For that you can basically click on the curve editor and then select certain important elements within the control rig to see what kind of changes are going to be affected with these tween tools. Let's also add some more control rig elements into the game, like these: the body, the torso, the hands. And as you can see, now we have this punch-like movement. Let's try this one. If I would move it under blend name towards right, it will basically make the move towards the right keyframe. As you can see, it is moving backwards. And if you would move to the left, it would move more in the way of the other keyframe. Maybe we have selected too many objects to see it clearly, but you can play around with it and see what kind of things we are talking about. And in order to see it in a better way, you can also go to the stacked view mode or normalized view mode, where all the curves are almost the same dynamic range. But the absolute view mode has a better view. We have selected several body parts and now we can play around to see what is doing what. Here we can select one keyframe and then play around with the blend neighbor tool. If you move it towards right, it will make its curve more like the one on the right. If you move it to the left, the body part is moving backwards, as you can see. The others, like the tween, a little bit more of a overwrite those kind of movements. But again, it has a similar principle to what we were talking about, like the blend neighbor. Push and pull is going to amplify the movements. Of course, you have to play around with these to understand their actions in a better way, and maybe it's better to isolate your characters in easier to render scenes. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going through them one by one. Move relative. Again, you can move certain keyframes up and down. Time offset is going to change the value and give a little bit of offset about its action. Smooth rough, let's take a look at it, and the rough function. And smooth function. So the movements are going to be a little bit smoother or rough in accordance with the movements. And we have already seen the tween. And since we are here, we are already under the curve editor. You can also select certain curves, keyframes, and buffer and then make some changes. This by hand, I'm just making quick changes to see what these buffers are doing. So you see that there is this ghost-like lines. So that means, so you have made those changes previously, swap those buffered curves and do it the other way. So if you made already some changes, buffering curves is very, very useful. Additionally, you can also take a look at these tools, transform. This allows you to move the curves in bigger motions like this. It's like basically a scale box. You can also change the pivot point of it. I undo it. You can retime it. Again, this whole animation curve shapes stay the same, but the retiming changes in which duration that this action is going to take. Multiscale allows you to change certain objects on the certain directions, as you can see, so either vertically or horizontally. And the lattice is like a skew tool in Photoshop. So you can basically skew all these content. Of course, I have deformed the animation big way after playing around with them, but these are all very strong tools that have been used by the animators for the last almost 20-30 years of animation of digital content creation. And these tools used to be only in certain DCCs like Maya or other 3ds Max or other animation tools. But now, thanks to the recent developments, we now have these tools in Unreal Engine 2. I'd like to also talk about the shortcuts. If you click on one of those keyframes, if you just basically move around with your mouse, it would move it whatever you would move it, whichever direction you would move your mouse. But I press Ctrl Z. If you press on it, with U and then left mouse button, you see that the tween tool is only activated. So the selected tween tool is blend enabled. So I'm not manipulating the keyframe's position, but instead I'm just basically playing around the slider. And then if you press Shift U, then you can basically switch from one tween tool to another one easily. And if you press Ctrl U, that will activate the overshoot, which allows you to extend the available range over 100% if you like to exaggerate the movements. Now we continue with segment 4. Creating new character customizations. Engine first deformations and dynamics refer to the use of Unreal Engine for almost everything that we would require for this kind of an animation. Now, thanks to the recent advancements in Unreal Engine 5.7, we even have a Sculpt Morph tool inside these character editing tools. So that will allow us to create our custom blend shapes. Additionally, we have the control rig physics, which allow us some certain procedural dynamics, and also the reverse baking technology, which allows us the data reusability. Sculpting new deformation, we will first need to enable the Morph Editing Tools plugin. We have done it already in the project setup process. And then we will use the built-in modeling tools to sculpt shapes during runtime. And then we will use control rig physics to procedurally create secondary motion steps and reverse bake the customized animation data. I have now opened the skeletal mesh of the beta character in the skeletal mesh editor. And here you can see that the already existing tools, skeleton, skin, deform, model, and mesh. Now the newest tool is morph. Thanks to morph, we can now start modifying certain parts of the body by morphing the sculpture of the character. In here, I have already selected certain parts of the character, and if you have done certain changes, you can see that the movements that you have made are visible by changing all those values. Or maybe you can see both of them in action. In order to make certain changes to a certain parts of the character, we can basically click on those parts. This part was another part of the character that we have played around. Of course, you can deform the character to a really high degree, but Let me show you how to handle it. You basically click on Sculpt Morph Targeting, and then you select the brush, and then you can start playing around with the character. Of course, this is a very bad thing to do, but if you can see what's happening, you can basically play around with all these values, and that way you can create new blend shapes, new poses for your character with the newest tools that weren't previously available to us inside Unreal Engine. Of course, if you would apply to the asset, those changes will be applied. I am now in sequence 30, and in this sequence you can see that the control rig is activated again. I have selected the neck moving part, and if you would start moving the part, you can see that the physics of the hair part is already active. So this is also something new. Of course, I have broken the neck of the character, but if you would just make slow movements, you could see that the hair part is jiggly. This is also a good opportunity to see the differences between the control rig physics and the baked animation. If you go one layer up, you can easily go here, and instead of the control rigs, you would come to the baked animation of the same content. You will see that the hair particles have a more desired output. So how is this possible? Because this animation is baked onto the character as a separate animation. If I click on Ctrl B, this is beta's animation. So all these recorded animations can easily be created within the sequencer, and then they can be baked and then be used as animation files on top of the characters. If you would like to combine those, that is also possible. For example, if you have a baked animation, if you go to control rig in a layered way and then select the control rig, you still preserve the previous baked animation, and then you can add extra control rig animations like these kind of movements. After you made certain changes, like let's say you had your baked animation and the control rig, you can also bake both those animation sequences into control rigs or baked animations, or you can also do it in a reverse way, bake the control rig. So this is beta's control rig. So let's say you have already a baked animation, you would like to modify that animation, you can again re-bring it to a control rig animatable kind of animation. All of the things, all of the rig elements will be calculated, and now you will be able to see everything from your baked animation with a control rig on top of it. Final segment, recap and conclusion. A quick recap. The top takeaways would be the reduced DCC tripping. The new tools like the Sculpt Morph and the Tween tools, they handle work previously requiring external DCCs, digital content creation tools. Now, as you have seen, we do not need them as much as we needed them previously with previous versions of Unreal. The performance control is also another important factor here. The motion trails and Tween tools provide unprecedented keyframe precision in Sequencer, and the integrated pre-production thanks to the Odyssey plugin, which proves that storyboarding and previs can happen collaboratively inside the engine. These are the resources that I have used during this tutorial. Many of them are YouTube videos by Unreal Engine YouTube channel, where you can both watch the walkthroughs of these projects created by the Agora Studio animators themselves. And also you can watch a 4 lessons series by Sir Wade Neistat under dev.epicgames.com under Unreal Engine community. Additionally, you can take a look at the Odyssey plugin documentation by Praxis NoScope, and the asset packs, including the Odyssey plugin, are listed here with their fab addresses. You can quickly find them via quick search. Thank you for watching it, and I hope you can start already to create your own creations. Have a nice day. Take care.